my God. Let's see. So, good afternoon now. This is Rosie the Quilter, and let me take off my glasses for now. Since I'm not actively sewing, let me use my glasses. Go without my glasses, rather. And as I promised before, as you can see behind me, it looks like I have the things that I was sewing kind of like done. But oftentimes, especially when you're not using someone else's pattern who's thought it out and told you how much to cut and where to sew, when you are trying to design something yourself, this is one of the hardest parts. You've gone through, okay, what am I going to sew? And you've also gone through thinking about, well, what fabrics am I going to use? And you've already done that part, as you can see. I figured out what fabrics I was going to use. And I decided that this time I was going to make a brown quilt. I'm always using pinks and bright reds and blue and flowers. This time I wanted to go with brown and use the fabrics that I have that have texture in them to give the quilt its character. So a lot of times that's one of the hardest things, to find fabric that isn't so much in its color, brightness of its color, showing you its character, but it's showing you its character from the texture of how they have woven the fabric. So in this case, as you can see behind me, it's fabrics that are using lines and swirls. And I'm just going to turn it around so that you can see it better. So here you go. You can see that I'm using fabrics that use these lovely brown with golden lines through it. And then I'm using the set in squares is brown and has like leaves. So, and the leaves are in their own motion, swirling. So they're not just static leaves just sitting there, they're in motion, right? And then I have this lovely brown. Again, it's using different gradations of light and dark and swirls. And you can see feathers in there. You can see some elements of leaves in there as well. So you see, so that even though this quilt is all brown, it's not all the same color brown. There are different patterns in the fabric that bring the quilt to life. And all of that serves to the purpose of the scripture. So when I make a quilt, when I am designing a quilt, all of that has to be made in a way that will service the scripture. Hi, Janet. And it has to service the scripture in a way that enhances what I am putting together in this quilt. So as you see here, those are lovely colors and swirls together. But this is not all. I still have to do my borders. This is supposed to be a lap quilt, and I don't make large lap quilts. My lap quilts tend to be around 50 inches by 60 inches. This one I think is going to turn out to be closer to, what did I say? 40, 46 or 47 by 49. So almost square, not quite. But that's what this one is going to turn out to be. I mean, honestly, you could put this up on a wall if you had enough wall space, or you could just, as you're sitting in a chair, put it over your lap. This is a perfect quilt to go for someone who is chair bound or wheelchair bound, or if they're in a nursing home and you just want something to go over them in the bed, because special beds in hospital beds are not very wide. They're narrow. So this would be the perfect width for such a bed. So if you're thinking about designing a quilt such as that, this is the kind of size with maybe 2 or 3 borders. So my next thing, I was thinking, okay, am I going to have trouble deciding what scripture goes where? And I decided, you know what? I am not going to worry about that, because I love all the scriptures I've chosen. So I am not going to stress about which scripture goes where. All of them are going to go in. And where I put them, it's fine. So once you decide that you're not going to stress over which scripture is going to go where, then you can talk about, so what are my borders going to be after I sew these rows together? And that's where I come to this. This, I'm actually looking at 2 different greens here. So this brown is going to be my outer border, but you also want to look at what fabric am I looking at to go on the inside. I'm going to do a 3-inch inner border, which looks better. Now this one, because it has the leaves and different gradations of color, could work because we have that the set and square with the leaves. But then I have this one, which also uses green leaves, different kinds of leaves, but it has the same kind of swirly look. But it has the same kind of swirly look that you see with that other brown. So I'm like, I don't know which way to go. Can't use both. However, when you have this kind of problem, what is your solution? I mean, this is what happens when you do a lot of sewing. What is my solution? I can use the other one in the other quilt. Because remember, I have these. I have these ready to go for another quilt. So there's no reason to stress over. If I have 2 good options, I could use one now and the other later. Problem solved. So now the other thing I was thinking, okay, do you want to do a narrow, very narrow inner border? And I was thinking about doing a black inner border. Kona black is beautiful. And it's one way to stop the color so that you can introduce the green, So I'm thinking very much about adding a narrow border, only about maybe 1.5 inches border, so that it can work. I don't know. What do you think? let me look here. I'm going to come back to myself. Here we go. Alrighty, folks. So that is one of the questions that you could ask when you're looking at something like this. A narrow border, one of the reasons for putting in a narrow border is to stop the eye from looking at these various different colors of brown and kind of like encapsulate that brown by putting in that narrow black border. And then introducing this new color, the green, between the outer border and the black. Because that green, these are very bright greens, will like stand out. Not too much. I have much brighter green, but I didn't want to put that with this. So I'm going to go with a narrow black. So I'll cut a 2-inch strip, and then with the seam allowances, it'll be just a narrow 1-inch border. I'm going to cut a 3.5-inch strip from the green, so it finishes 3 inches. So you finish 1 inch, then 3-inch. Then of the brown, I'm going to go with 6.5 inches. So essentially, you double your borders. 1, 3, well, more than 1. 1, 3 inches, and then 6 inches. And that will make up a wonderful little quilt. And not take that much time. I should finish the top by the end of the day. Now, I am going to look and see if anybody's had any questions. I don't know how to look, but if you didn't, other than happy birthday, thank you so much for those people who did wish me happy birthday. A little bit more about design strategy here. So I'm going to have these 3 borders. There are 2 ways to add this border. You could either add it along the edge, sides and the top, or you could go for what we call a border that will have on a diagonal at the corners. It's a little bit more difficult to do. A lot of times I don't like to do it, but some people like that. I'm not one of them. I like to have all my corners squared off, and it makes it easier for me to quilt it that way. But the quilting part, that won't be done today. I'll have to have a separate video with my setup on my computer to show you what my designs are going to be for each of the blocks and the borders when I get ready to quilt it. Probably today is Monday, later this week. I do have some other things to do. So I'm going to get ready to sign off. But before I do, I want to show you some of my other things that I have that I'm going to be doing. So let me just get up and walk over to, this is my pressing board. And also, this is my pressing board, but it's also where I do some layouts. So one of the things I do when I am working with fabrics, I have this lovely panel that had these lovely scripture, some of them are scripture, some of them are what I call inspirational verses. But what marks them is the fact that it uses this lovely pastel-y, almost batik fabric. And so I am going to make these up with just a plain black border. And these are nice little placemat type quilts. But one of the things that it also has in that panel are these lovely little crosses with different colorways that you see here. And then I make them up into similar little placemats. They're good little gifts, handout gifts. And I've chosen some batik fabrics to use, and also with a narrow black border. As you can see here, a narrow black border, and then the batik fabric. So that's my next, that's going to be over the next week or two. There's no hurry on this. These are just lovely little things, because I hate to just throw away fabric that has these little extras in there. So okay, back to my board here. Oh, one more thing, let me show you how I sewed these. So if you're looking at this particular, the way I sewed them is I sewed them and then pressed to the dark side so that the edge of the darker fabric would not show against the white. That's just good housekeeping, pressing, right? Not ironing, but pressing. Okay. So I'll get on to sewing these together. I'm not sure if I'm going to sew them in rows or sew them in columns. I'll toss a coin and see which way to go. And I tell you what, I will come back in a few hours, and then you'll see which green did she use. Okay? Until then, I'm signing off, Rosie the Quilter, still working on that prayer quilt. Bye.